your screen, but I'm going to hit start. So Paul, give it a 20-second lag or 15-second lag, and you're good to go.
Okay. You're good to go.
Russ, you're back there. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right, welcome to Sunrise School Division Board of Trustees meeting on February the 16th. I'm going to call our meeting to order. Please join us in the Singing Over Canada with the Gillis School Cree Anthem, and please stand if you can. Thank you to the students from Gillis School. 1.3 on our agenda is our treaty acknowledgement. I do need to let everyone know that we have 8 trustees that are here with us tonight. One of our trustees, Trustee Barry, isn't able to join us. As well, joining us, Superintendent Timko, Secretary Treasurer Carlton, we have Board Secretary Stacy Bonato, and joining us tonight is we have Jody Wolgosh, the Principal of Support Services. We have a treaty acknowledgement. Please, Diane Rowland is going to go ahead and read our treaty acknowledgement. Trustee Rowland, you have the floor.
Thank you. We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnership with Canada's Original Peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rowan. And I agree that the national anthem from Gillis School was pretty amazing. So the adoption of our agenda, be it resolved, the board approve our agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Rowland, seconded by.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Trustee Reed. Any questions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Paul?
Yes.
Sorry, I had an addition to our agenda today.
Okay. Thank
Sorry.
you.
Couldn't move fast enough. I apologize. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not sure where to add this, but I had seen in our Secretary Treasurer report for today that our requests that we had put forward through our maintenance manager for additional funding for 3 projects is still outstanding on our getting word back whether we're going to be approved for that funding yet. So I would like to make a motion today somewhere in our agenda to ask our maintenance manager to go ahead and with those 3 projects, without waiting for the direct approval through that program that the government is offering. Those are 3 projects that are important, and I feel that we could go ahead on those projects. We have some funding available to cover that in the interim, and if, I guess we can discuss it later, but I would like to have that proposal put in.
So how about if I put into 7.2 and seeing that it's okay with our board, is a discussion on the 3 outstanding projects and looking for a discussion and potentially a motion. So 7.2, what I'm saying is let's put in 7.2 outstanding funded projects, and we'll bring it up then. Is that okay, Trustee Rowland?
That's great by me.
Is there any objections from the board? Okay, hearing no objections then, let's go ahead and vote.
Thank you.
So it was passed 8-0. Thank you for that. So 3.0 Chair's comments. I certainly want to commend all of the hardworking people that we've had in our school division, certainly over the last little while, cold weather days, and getting as many of our kids to school safely. So kudos to all the staff. And for the days when we haven't had students, for the hard work that you've been able to go ahead and do together, you know, continuing to plan and prep and collaborate with your colleagues. So kudos. Share a story, opening up 3.2. Anybody around would like to share a story? Go ahead, Trustee Rowland.
All right. Actually, it's been a very good little while here. I have a couple of great stories to share. Firstly, I wanted to let everyone know and commend our music teacher, Cora Enns at Ecole Dugald School. Her students actually hit the streets in the neighborhood and were shoveling the streets of Dugald. It was so well received by all the residents. They were all amazed of the community involvement by the students, and it was Miss Cora Enns there who students had taken on that the job for the residents there and cleared some streets, and so that was just wonderful. As well, I wanted to make you aware of 2 great parents that are doing some great work at Dugald. Meredith Gronley and Kate Groenheid. They are 2 parents that in the summertime go to the school and make chalk designs, pictures, murals in the basketball court and on the sidewalks. But in wintertime, they come to the school and paint the windows and make murals in the hallways, and doing really good work. They put up inspirational messages and cheerful displays. The students and staff are always looking forward to the positive and uplifting messages in winter, and I'm sure they really appreciate it last week with the freeze. And so they're doing great work, those parents. Thanks.
Thanks, Trustee Rowland. Anyone else share a story? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. 4.1 talks about, we have a numeracy presentation. Kathy, I'm going to let you introduce it.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Megan. We have with us again this meeting Jody Wilgosh, who is going to speak to you today about divisional initiatives in the area of numeracy. So at our first meeting in February, we had some information and presentation about what's going on in our schools in the areas of early literacy, and Jody is going to take you through a series of data slides and school stories to talk to you about what's going on across the division in the area of numeracy. Jody, are you ready?
I am ready. I have my screen
Awesome.
up if somebody wants to show my screen.
I think that you have to.
Maybe request control.
I think off to your right, there is a button that says share as well.
Okay, let me.
For all of our public, this is what our teachers go through on a regular basis, trying to make sure they get their virtual and remote learning underway. Never a dull moment.
There it is. Share. How's that?
Awesome.
You got
You can
it.
see
All
it.
you.
Okay. All right. So welcome everyone. So presentation on middle years numeracy with a focus on the Mrlc Action Research Project. Started with a quote. This is from Marion Small. Until you show kids that you love what you do, they aren't going to love what you do either. And the importance of this quote cannot be understated. Its theme is going to resonate kind of throughout everything you hear and see tonight. And just a little bit about Dr. Marion Small. She's an internationally renowned math educator, author, and professional learning consultant whose career in education has spanned more than 4 decades, is considered one of the most influential math educators in Canada. She's authored or co-authored more than 85 math resources and traveled to math classrooms around the world to provide consultation focused on improving understanding and performance in K-12 math. Uh-oh, what happened here? Sorry, Kathy, something lagged here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you clicking your screen too.
Yeah. Let's try this.
There you go.
Okay, that worked.
Yeah, there's no such person as a math person.
Okay. So yeah, there is no such thing as a math person. I want to go through just a quote from Jo Boaler from her book, Limitless Mind. Many children grow up thinking that either you can do math or you can't. When they struggle, they assume that they can't. From that point on, any struggle is a further reminder of their perceived inadequacies. Researchers now know that when people with math anxiety encounter numbers, a fear center in the brain is activated. It's the same fear center that lights up when people see snakes or spiders. As the fear center of the brain becomes activated, activity in the problem-solving centers of the brain is diminished. It's no wonder that so many people underachieve in mathematics. As soon as people become anxious about it, their brains are compromised. We are not born with fixed abilities, and those who achieve at the highest levels do not do so because of their genetics. The myth that our brains are fixed and that we only simply don't have the aptitude for certain topics is not only scientifically inaccurate, it is omnipresent and negatively impacts education and many other events in our daily lives, end quote. So just some more info about that. Daniel Ansari is a math prof at the University of Western Ontario, and he says that 60% of grade 8 students worry about having difficulty in math, while 30% of students feel tense when completing math homework. It's important to take students' attitudes and emotions into account when dealing with math anxiety because there is a direct relationship between anxiety and math performance. And math anxiety is real for so many students in Sunrise, but also for our math teachers as well. Teachers that have been part of this project have conquered some of their own anxieties due to the learning that they've received and now feel way more confident and capable. And this really matters. It has led to increased sense of enthusiasm and passion towards the teaching of math. And this is contagious and definitely filters down to the students of those teachers as well. I'm just going to give you some kind of a timeline on when this started, and we'll start with what is the Mrlc. I'm having to, just so everyone knows, I'm kind of having to double click because I lost the note slide, but we'll be fine. The Mrlc is the Manitoba Rural Learning Consortium. It was established in 2011 to support rural school divisions in addressing the unique challenges facing rural education. It works across and within school divisions with a focus on consultation, coaching, and collaboration. And the intention is for collaborative and innovative professional learning networks and research projects that serve educators in ensuring quality teaching that benefits the learning of all students. So, in 2016, Kathy was asked if Sunrise was interested in coming to hear about a project that PEI had been involved in to increase their numeracy achievement. And they presented on a sequencing and pacing tool that allowed teachers to teach their entire curriculums more efficiently. Every school division that came to listen decided they were interested and wanted to learn more. And we had all our, at that time, in that spring, we had all of our grade 6 and grade 9 students write an initial baseline assessment in June. So it was decided at that point that there would be a couple pilot schools, and it was Gillis and Nicole Edward Charter School. A couple teachers in the grade 6 level were chosen to become part of that cohort that would begin a 3-year learning journey, with our program leader Alan Stevenson as their coach, and grade 9 teachers from Nicole Edward Charter School that were doing the same thing with Carol Blocker as their coach. There's 4 sessions per year at the U of M with Laura Brake and Ted Johnson, and they led some really valuable professional development, some of the best stuff that the teachers have ever had, and everybody bought into what was being presented, and it essentially transformed their teaching. So that started the 3-year journey of real targeted and intensive PD. Along with the U of M sessions, they met regularly with Alan here at the Education Center. And then after the 3 years of learning and seeing the positive impacts and the great student achievement, it was decided to go forward in training all of the teachers in Sunrise in grade 6 and grade 9. And so the team of teachers that attended the 3 years of initial learning all wanted to be part of that team that would deliver the same learning to all of the rest of the grade 6 to 9 teachers. And that really built capacity in their system from our own ranks, and that continues to build. So we are wrapping up our 3rd and final year of training with all of those grade 6 to 9 teachers, and we are hopeful to begin the training with all of our grade 7 and 8s next fall. The hope was that it was going to be this year, but due to the pandemic, that didn't happen. So we're looking forward to that next year because it will bridge a gap between grade 6 and 9. This next slide is an example of what Alan went through with our grade 6 teachers before they started the project. And this is a dotmocracy that shows what the teachers felt were essential outcomes. And so what's listed on the bottom are all the grade 6 outcomes, and they were able to choose what they felt was essential. And it highlights the difference in belief systems in different schools, and even in different teachers in the same school. It's human nature to gravitate to things that we're good at and avoid the things that we're not good at it, especially when we have to teach it. And it's not that anyone was wrong here. It's just that it's clear having a common set of essential outcomes and a schedule of when and how to teach them would be really beneficial to our system. And that's where the pacing guide comes in. So this pacing guide provides teachers with a framework for when to teach the outcome and how long to spend teaching it. And it was very uncomfortable to everyone at the start, sort of being told of what to do and when, but that uncomfort led to a lot of learning. Teachers are given permission to move on before all of their students get it, because they're trained to spiral and provide reach back opportunities. And this was a huge shift, because it just doesn't feel right to move on when you know that students are still struggling with some concepts, except if there's a plan. And with this format, there was a plan. So a couple terms there. I spoke about spiraling. It means breaking down outcomes into smaller chunks that are going to be revisited and practiced over a longer period of time. And the other one is reach back, and that's the practice of constantly revisiting topics that have already been taught. Way back Wednesdays, throwback Thursdays, flashback Fridays are popular ways that teachers have used to revisit things that have already been taught and allow students to see and experience it over and over again. Because the MRC advises teachers to move on to the next outcome to keep up with the pacing guide before all students get it, reach back is necessary to allow these kids the opportunity to try again and have more practice with the things that they previously struggled in. And one other thing to note with this pacing guide, the bold outcomes you can see. So if you look at September, you'll see N7, N4 in October. These are known as foundational outcomes, and research has proven that these outcomes are critical to the future success for students. All outcomes are important and need to be taught, but these foundational outcomes require a deeper conceptual understanding. Okay, so a quote about the pacing guide. What I love most about MRLC is that it is a supportive framework for teaching math. It does not tell you how to deliver math outcomes, but rather the when and why. I love this because as a teacher, it still allowed me to be creative with my lessons and plan with my students in mind. It still gave me the freedom to differentiate and link ideas cross-curricular to suit the needs of my students. But this framework allowed me to spend less time on mapping out the order of curricular expectations and more time planning, engaging, and effective lessons. And another quote about the pacing guide from another Sunrise teacher. My experience with MRLC has dramatically shifted my approach to math as an educator. The pacing guide gives clear and direct focus and flow to the curriculum and outcomes, taking out the guesswork of where to go next. This provides consistency across the division and within schools. Okay, so now it's your turn. I need everyone to get out a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, and you're going to complete the following question. You have 1 minute, and I will be calling in each one of you to present your answer. If you're watching at home or on the recording, you can do the same. And I will start timing now. Okay, I'll let you off the hook. I'm hoping that some of you may have felt a little bit of an increased heart rate, maybe some shallow breathing, maybe not enough time for some sweaty palms yet, but those are the symptoms of math anxiety. And I wanted you to experience that authentically because many of our students do, if we are not planning effectively. These feelings are not part of a student's imagination. They're real and they negatively affect a student's ability to learn math and learn anything for that matter. So this is actually a question, this is an example of a question from a formative quiz. And formative quizzes are given to students after they've been taught all the foundational outcomes. There's 10 questions on each quiz, and they're focused on only the foundational outcomes. And there's 1 question per page, and that is done purposefully so the teachers are trained about the importance of having their students show their mathematical thinking and reasoning in order to receive credit for a correct response. A data tool is then used by teachers to input their scores, and they receive a very visual graphic that I'll show you in the next slide, where students are in relation to each of the outcomes. And to go along with the formative quiz, teachers are provided a distractor rationale. This shows them the other responses that were chosen in the question, the wrong ones, that were very intentionally chosen based on the challenges that kids usually have. And I want to be really clear with this. The distractor rationale is not there to trick students, and we should never set out to be tricking students on any assessment. Each answer has been designed based on years of experience have shown, and it lets teachers know what students need next and which students to group together in order to provide them the corrective instruction that each of them need. So let's say, for example, 5 kids got questions wrong. So 2 may have chosen A, 2 may have chosen B, 1 may have selected D. And each of those responses requires a different intervention from the teachers. And now they can use that to form small groups or individual instruction way more consistently and purposefully. So this is a tracking sheet, and it's used to help create the class organizer that I'll show next. These are data and results from the formative quizzes that are entered, and teachers receive this very visual representation. So they can start to see not only what is right and wrong, but they can zero in more clearly on which kids are making common errors. Anything that is in a color means that there was an error. The yellow E means that it was left empty. But teachers also receive graphs that are also very visual and demonstrate growth over time. These can be linked to the creation of their class profiles. And the best use of this data is immediate by the teacher. This isn't something that gets sent to the division or gets shared divisionally, because that's not its intended purpose. And this is the intended purpose. So teachers actively engaged in taking the data from the graph and completing their class organizers, which is their class profile for math. And this organizer ultimately guides their teaching for the next several weeks. So some more teacher thoughts. It really helped me be aware of what I was teaching and with a purpose. I was not just handing out work that I thought was appropriate for that unit. Each lesson and its order was purposeful. Mrlc Assessments paired with the pacing guide allows teachers to reflect on the gaps in student learning. This gives us the student-specific data we need to do whole class review, small group instruction, or one-on-one support. So this is an example of the class organizer. So this is data that was taken from that tracking sheet, and you can see that, for example, N4 that's highlighted in green, that is something that is going to have to be done with whole class instruction, the same as PR2. So those two concepts will be done with the whole class. If you see the other ones that are in yellow, those would be different groups, and so those are students that didn't get those questions correctly, and so the teacher knows that they have to do different small groups. And so this class organizer is a very meaningful class profile that's visited and tweaked often. This is an example of the bar graph that's created after teacher inputs the data. It's the same data that was on that tracking sheet. And it's a very powerful visual that teachers are able to show to the class. Teachers and students become really invested in seeing how these change and improve over time. Students are able to articulate exactly which ones they're having difficulty with and why, and they want to see changes as well. And so here's a couple examples of what some changes might look like. So example 1, if you look at question 9, so it's the last one on the right, all 24 students responded C, and that was correct. So the foundational outcome appears to be very well understood by all students, and teacher doesn't have to do anything further with that. If we look at question 2, this shows that 14 out of 24 students got this correct by choosing A. 6 students made the same error according to the distractor rationale by choosing B. So this would likely be one small group of instruction for that group, and then 2 students chose C and 1 chose D, and they will also require some corrective instruction, but different because there's different responses. Question 6 is another example. So only 7 out of 24 students were successful with this foundational outcome, and so this is one the teacher would probably like to reteach it. And if it's me, I would say, man, I probably missed something here, and so let's redo that. And that's how teachers would present that to the students as well. And maybe they're actually going through and doing a deconstruction. And that's a strategy that is taught and demonstrated to teachers as part of their professional learning. Deconstruction is essentially breaking down a question into smaller, more manageable parts, but it's a little more involved than that, and it takes practice to become proficient in, but yields tremendous results. And just in case you're wondering, we actually have a homegrown expert in deconstruction of math questions. No, it's not me, but I've actually seen her do it firsthand, and I was blown away. And that would be our superintendent, Miss Kathy Timko. Okay, so these are our grade 6 schools that in 2018 were part of the second cohort. Several had their teachers change teaching assignments over the past few years, and I've asked for resources associated with their new teaching assignment because they wanted to continue with it because they saw the results, and that's fantastic. We also have schools that are asking to be involved because teachers talk to one another, and as a result, several pockets of teachers have asked if they could play with some of the sequencing and pacing, and these schools have had meetings with our program leader Alan Stevenson and have been given some of the necessary theory and knowledge to pockets of teachers in grade 5 in these schools so that they can see how it might impact the work with their students. So this first quote, the first year that I used Mrlc framework with my grade 6s was the first time in my career that I taught the entire math curriculum and taught it well. All math teachers have felt that way at some point, no matter what grade. It's difficult, if not impossible, to ensure that the entire curriculum is taught well without targeted professional expertise. And notice that I say taught well. I didn't say covered the curriculum, because anyone can cover the curriculum, but it's what you do when kids struggle to learn that sets you apart. And there's a great quote I have on my wall here in the office, and it says, "Teaching without learning is just presenting." And we're not about just presenting. The second quote, Mrlc Pacing Guide promotes teacher collaboration because you are actually teaching the same outcomes at the same time. This naturally invites discussion and reflection amongst teachers as the framework creates professional unity. Now, this might not seem like much, but it's really powerful. Teaching is a difficult profession, and it's even more difficult in isolation. However, I'm sure you've heard expressions like 2 heads are better than 1 or many hands make light work. When groups of teachers get together and plan, discuss, and problem solve, the magic happens. They feed off each other's energy and get even more excited about their work. It's not only empowering and energizing for the teachers, the kids get all the benefits. It's like each classroom has multiple teachers and they end up bringing out the best in all of their students. So professional learning that teachers have received while participating in this project is crucial to its sustained success. And the focus of the project has been how curriculum instruction and assessment are all linked and connected and need to be thought about. The teachers now know their curriculum better than ever as a result. They have learned some new teaching instruction strategies based on the patterns and trends that we've seen in and that you'll see in some of the data, and use a variety of research-based formative and summative assessments to constantly see where their students are at and what they might need next in order to move them along. And the tools in this project also don't stay stagnant. They change based on research and best practice. And I'll highlight a couple new tools that our grade 6 teachers have started implementing even just this year. So this first one is the addition of the mini quizzes, and they are provided for each foundational outcome. These are another tool that teachers use to find where students are getting stuck or sticking point. They build in complexity, so if a student makes a mistake on the first question and another student makes a mistake on the final question, they're in very different places in terms of their understanding. The second student only needs a little help to move on, while the first student requires a lot of corrective instruction. And teachers are now grouping kids based on how they perform in these formative tools. Students that get the first couple questions wrong make a group, and students that might have an error in the third or fourth question make another group. This next tool is called Constructive Responses, and they're used along with the mini quizzes. So instead of multiple choice questions, students now need to communicate their mathematical thinking so teachers can clearly see where their misconception might be. If students make errors on the first couple of questions on the mini quiz, they give them some selected questions from the first portion of the constructed response questions. If they make a mistake in the third or fourth question in the mini quiz, they get some questions in the second half of the constructed response. And this can be done individually or in small groups so that teachers can see and listen to what a student might be doing. And this really helps a teacher gather triangulated evidence of what the student knows and what they need to move them along. These two formative assessment tools do both of the spiraling and reach back that I described previously, because they build and are cumulative over time, so kids are getting the new along with what's already being taught. The formative quizzes bring back the foundational outcomes over and over again to allow students to gain a deeper understanding of the content, and they are intentionally designed this way because we know that it's what's best for kids. So every June, all grade 6 students in Sunrise and grade 9s as well, but we're focusing on grade 6s, they complete a summative baseline assessment, and this is an assessment on all of the outcomes. And so they vary in cognitive demand from some level 1 questions up to some level 3 questions and some in between. And this was another part of significant learning for the teachers involved. They are instructed to teach to the highest cognitive level, which would be the level 3. And teachers are starting to provide their students with richer questions to grapple with and apply, analyze, evaluate, and problem solve to demonstrate their understanding. It's really rewarding to see how teachers make this shift. Our students are going to be so much better in the long run being given opportunities to take on these tougher questions because they require a deeper understanding of the outcome to be more successful. And the baseline data that we are, those results that we are seeing are now being used to target specific outcomes that need improvement in the numeracy residencies and mini residencies that our numeracy program leader is facilitating. And so I've added, my apologies, I didn't have this on the original slide, but I figured it would make sense to give you an idea of what the difference between a level 1, level 2, and level 3 question would be. So this is a level 1 question. The outcome is area. So this would kind of be a standard question, find the area of the rectangle below. The next question is a level 2. So same outcome, but a rectangle has an area of 32 centimeters squared. What might its dimensions be? So it's kind of like a Jeopardy question because it's actually an answer and the student has to find the question. It's a subtle change, but it changes the thought process and challenges students in a different way. So that is level 2 question. And level 3 question at the bottom is example. So it's much more information is given. And it's a real life example and much more information is necessary. So Larry's building a garden in his backyard. The area of the garden is 27 meters squared. Garden is 3 meters wide. How long is it? Verify your solution with a sketch or a diagram. So these are the type of questions we need to focus more on to dig deeper and for a lasting understanding. Another teacher thoughts. The formative assessments are valuable because they ask appropriate, challenging questions. They do not assess the basic skill of the outcome. This is beneficial as it assesses and informs the teacher of their level of understanding based on how they answer the question and whether they know what the initial step to take to solve it. All this and more has given me a greater sense of confidence when teaching, as well in creating high-level thinking questions. Students are excited to see their progress and don't fear failure as they know it's only a stepping stone to creating better understanding and math resiliency. So now that you've seen the tools and how they're used and heard some testimonials from grade 6 teachers, let's have a look at what the data says. So what I'll be showing you is some summative data from the baseline assessments completed in June of the last 5 years. It starts in 2016. You'll notice that we don't have any data from last spring, unfortunately, because students weren't in school in June and assessments couldn't be administered. And it's separated in 4 strands: number sense, patterns and relations, shape and space, and statistics and probability. So this first one, number sense is about showing decimals, fractions, and ratios using place value, multiplying, dividing decimals, and explain the order of operations. So if you look at where we started in 2016, we see a nice trajectory up to 2019. The next strand is patterns and relations, which uses variables to show patterns. An example would be a symbol used to represent a number in an expression. And so we see another nice trajectory, although we have a slight blip in 2018 where we dropped a little bit, but still went back up in 2019. Next slide is shape and space, and that identifies and draws angles and triangles, solves problems using perimeter, area, and volume. So we see, again, very similar to the number sense. We see a nice trajectory up to 2019. And the last one is statistics and probability, and this is using line graphs to show and analyze information. And again, a nice trajectory up from 2016. So this is the same data that I just shared, except it has the 4 graphs together with the percentages. And so schools have access to all this data, and they can extrapolate based on individual classrooms. They can look at it for just males or females using IA or EAL to disaggregate data. And this is the same information as the bar graph, but it shows the exponential growth from 2016 to 2019. And it's really powerful to see that. It will also be very interesting to track these grade 6s when they are in grade 9 and beyond. And I will be able to share some of that in the grade 9 credit attainment section of the seniors presentation on March 2nd.
Mr. Wilgosh, it's Trustee Peczkowski. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm just wondering if you can just touch on what these percentages mean, if that's the number of students that are obtaining a certain level, and that's not so much a score. And I think I just want to make sure that any viewers that are watching it, that's clear.
Yeah, so let me just go back. So this would be their percentage on those outcomes. So this would be their average percentage. So not looking at the increase, if we're looking at the green box, that's the increase in their percentage, so their average percentage in that strand. And if we look at on the far left side, so the N would be the number of students. So that's the number of students that that took the assessments. Did that clarify that?
Yeah, no, for anybody watching, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear. That's all.
Okay. Okay. This is diagram or a flow chart that illustrates how teacher practice has changed, and it's a nice visual review of kind of what I've presented. So starting at the top left, teachers examine the formative data, then they look for what successes and challenges students might be having, choose an outcome, and using the instructional organizer decide what corrective practices we need to look at. Go through the assessments, determine the instructional strategies that may be used to support the next steps, then use the calendar to plan out the teaching block, and then re-administer the check-in for the formative assessment, and then kind of go back and start over. And this is pictures of teachers using the data, using the chart to plan more effectively. So the teachers involved in this project are all part of a hidden channel on the program leader Alan Stevenson's Numeracy team that allows them access to all the tools and resources that have been part of their training. It's regularly updated with the most current version of everything so that teachers can always go here and get what they need. Teachers can also use this space to ask each other questions, collaborate around curriculum instruction and assessment, and can have virtual meetings. And Alan intentionally chose to select from the open questions resource by Marion Small that most of our schools are already using in some capacity, and it's directly linked to Manitoba curriculum in both English and French, as well as the provincial support documents that offer some great ideas for teachers. And these are continually updated so that over a period of time there becomes quite a nice bank of ideas for our teachers to use. So I'm going to leave this math comic up as my conclusion, and I'll let you read that on your own. And I will say, if there is any questions, I would be happy to answer. I may have to unshare my screen.
Thanks, Jody. Kathy, did you want to add anything before we ask trustees for questions?
Yeah, I would like to add just a couple of pieces that really resonate for me from a place of making a difference to kids. This is one of those initiatives where no person comes in and says, here, do this. Teachers, students, everybody's invested in the process and has to have, again, I'm going to say either feet on the carpet or skin in the game for this to be successful. Teachers need to know the strategies, need to understand the quizzes, and need to be in it alongside the students for it to be successful. Students, again, from the deconstruction lessons that I've been able to go in and do, students who've never sort of understood math before, all of a sudden are in the game because they understand where they're messing up. And it's really, really powerful to see, and it's gaining some really, really productive results for us. So just that whole notion that this is more about people taking ownership and being in it all together for that success, if that's fair, Jody.
That's fantastic.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Kath. Trustees, are there any questions?
I have a few.
Go ahead, Don. Trustee Nicol.
Okay, they may not be questions, but I read your stuff on Sunday, and I did quite a bit of reading yesterday. And no, your pacing guide, I looked on the internet, and it's only about 3-4 pages long. However, I'm wondering if any of the teachers look at the support document that is put out by the Manitoba Education, specifically grade 7. Because I looked at the grade 7, I didn't have time to look at all the grades 1 to 9. They got a support document which is 452 pages long, which has a wealth of information in there. And what I got from the document was nothing new than what you just told me. The document suggesting more or less exactly the same thing as you were suggesting. I know when I was teaching 1998, I was doing the same thing that we've been suggesting. I'm wondering whether the teachers are still looking at that support document, because that was done by a number of teachers and it was last revised in 2016. So my question is, long story short, is that are the teachers looking at that document? Are they just looking at the stuff they're getting from the research project?
Yeah, I would say for certain the teachers are always looking at the curriculum documents from Manitoba Education. It's important to note, I guess, the difference here that we're looking specifically at grade 6, and all of the outcomes that we're talking about are Manitoba outcomes. It's just that they're doing it in a different order. And they're timed basically, and so the things that you may have been able to find on the internet would be very small in terms of if you look at these teachers have gone through 3 years of training, and so there isn't 3 years of training of this stuff on the internet because it isn't free. So that the stuff isn't out there for anyone just to look at, and I think it's really important that everyone knows that we can't just post this stuff up and say, have at our teachers and get these kind of results, because that isn't going to happen. The training aspect that went along with this is vital, and it is a reason why it has been so successful. And so I think it's really important that we recognize that part, that we can't just throw things at teachers and think that we're going to get the same results, because the professional development that goes along with it is vital.
The next one is not really a question, but it's some history. You probably know in 1998 when I was teaching that patterns and relations and statistics and probability were the two sections that the students had most trouble with, and it really hasn't changed. In the 22 years that I've retired, not retired from teaching, but that those two things, in the 22 years that the students still have the trouble. If you look at the percentage they were getting, those are two strands you still had trouble with. So what I'm saying is that the troubles the kids had in 1998 is probably the same troubles that they have now, and I don't think that we have solved that problem yet.
I think you're right. We still have work to do for sure, and that's the great thing with this project in education. We know we're never done, and so we're going to keep moving on, keep moving forward for sure.
Okay, and thanks good for the presentation. I really enjoyed it, and of course you know that mathematics is dear to my heart. So and I agree with you that the more education teachers can get, the better education the students are going to get. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Nicol. Any other questions?
Robin,
Go ahead, Trustee Harris.
I'd like to give a plug and shout out to all our schools and teachers in Sunrise School Division, the math ones in particular. My son took his schooling at those early years and then graduated at Edward Schreyer about 2 years ago. He's now taking his PhD in math at the University of Waterloo in Ontario. While you were talking, Jody, I sent him a question and asked him, is there ever a time when 2 + 2 will not equal 4? I was hoping to find an excuse that I could use the next time I was given a tough math question. It turns out, however, that 2 + 2 is always equal to 4, no matter how you look at it. Darn it all anyway, I needed that excuse. I really did like your presentation tonight. I know there's a lot in it. In particular, your last slide. That was a great little graphic. Thanks so much for your talk tonight, Jody.
Thanks. I'm glad that the answer was 4 because you. I felt some math anxiety there when you asked the question.
All right.
Thanks, Trustee Harris. Anyone else?
I noticed that it's Trustee Duma. I can't seem to put my hand up. It's disappeared.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So I guess you said that this started in 2016, correct, Jody?
That's correct.
And so when you look at the results up to 2019, you're always a different grade 6 class. Are we looking at probably the teachers have gained knowledge over the years that they've done it, and that's why the marks went up so high in 2019?
That's exactly it. It's it's teacher efficacy has improved exponentially, and that's why we're seeing those results in the students. And like I said, we're gonna, like, this is not a one and done. This is something that we're going to be continuing to mine data with and seeing how the impact for the students when they're in grade 9 and beyond. Because you're right, it isn't the same students, but it still does tell us a really good story.
Yeah, and so you are going to bring back stuff on the grade 9ers then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want.
Yep.
Could you explain when that's going to come back, or when?
Well, actually, we've got another one scheduled for March 2nd, and so the focus on that one is grade 9 credit attainment and grade 12 graduation rates. And so within the grade 9 credit attainment, I'll be able to share some of the grade 9 math data. It'll be very similar graphs, and we'll see what the numbers shake out as.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Duma. Trustee Paczewski.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Wilgosh, for your presentation. I think there was a lot of really good information in there. So my question goes back to, excuse me, your slides with regards to the mini quiz. So you mentioned that if students had trouble with the first 2 questions, that they were grouped together. And I guess they're really, maybe I missed it. What does that look like for them working on that? And I just asked the question because my understanding and through experience is that peer learning is a really great thing. And I'm just trying to understand why we wouldn't maybe mix those groups up to take advantage of not only the math side of things, but having our students build skills around working collaboratively with each other, giving and receiving feedback. I know there's a lot of value in peer learning, and I'm just wondering what that looks like when you group those kids together.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I think the important distinguishing thing there is that when the outcomes are initially being taught, there's a lot of that's happening. It's after after the formative assessment, and teachers can see clearly that there's smaller numbers of students that are having difficulty with a question or a concept. Those are the ones that need a little bit extra, and so those are the students that are going to be grouped together, and it may be just a couple of them together. But it doesn't, you know, the old, and I'll say the old way, but I mean, one of the ways used to be, well, those students didn't get it, and so we're going to give all the other students that have achieved it, we're going to let them do something else, maybe doing the same thing, even though they've achieved that outcome already. And then we're going to keep working with those students. So the students that have achieved it, they haven't really been able to move forward because they're working on the same outcome. So in this way, we're still moving forward with outcomes, but those students that have had struggles, we're still going to come back to them, but we're not holding anyone else back. Does that clarify your question? Because it's your points are valid, and that's good. That's good teaching in any subject when you know students are able to work together, and so you'll see that. You just don't see that after the mini quizzes because we need to be really targeted with those students.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that, thank you for your answer. I think that you clarify a lot there. Yeah, I guess my thing would be that I don't look at it as, I guess, holding other students back. I think when a student can teach another student on something they do understand, they may not be learning that or I think they just learn that that topic or that that focus even more so. But I think they learn a lot of other skills in doing that as well. So I think it's not just about the one piece, the one math problem that they're looking to solve. I think it's about a lot more things that I think maybe would contribute to a well-rounded, or a better rounded education and student experience. But I guess if you're saying we're doing that in other areas, then I guess that would just be like kind of like a missed opportunity. That is the way I've seen that. But if it's happening elsewhere, then I understand. Yeah,
and you're right, and the science is clear on that. When students actually when we teach someone else, what we taught becomes part of our knowledge, and it's there for forever. So it is powerful, but I can assure you that it does happen. It just doesn't happen for everyone after every one of those mini quizzes.
If I can jump in for a quick second, and Jody, jump if I'm wrong on this, but after the mini quizzes, it is a short, targeted corrective intervention where they're grouped together. They're not grouped together for the whole lessons and from now and beyond. It's a targeted, timed period of working with those students.
Correct. Yes. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, no, and I think I understood that. Thank you, though. I had no other questions. Sorry, Paul.
I think Trustee Manuel doesn't have his mic on.
You're muted there, Paul.
Thank you. You heard me talking and I was, so any other trustees have a question?
Hi, Paul. It's Trustee Roland here.
Go ahead, Diane.
I just had a question. I'm wondering if there is comparative provincial numbers for those 4 strands that we could see that would show how we were doing in relation to the province overall. I see we do have, in our own school division, there is progress, but how do those numbers compare against provincial, and where would that be found?
As part of this project, there is some, and it isn't provincial. It would be so that there's data for every school division that has been part of the action research, but not every school division, and Metro Winnipeg is not because they're not part of the Mrlc. And so it's a valid question. They do some of those comparisons. I think the most important thing to remember is that we need to look at the growth against themselves. So we want to make sure students are improving, and so we want to, as long as they are showing growth within themselves, that's the most important thing. I can understand from your perspective, you kind of want to compare, divisionally to see how we're doing, up against other students, but that isn't that sort of data isn't there.
Okay, I guess I would like to know how we are standing as a division compared to other divisions. I do understand the value of always improving and taking steps forward and better. That's of course very important, but it's also just to know, whether we're leading the pack, or are we trying our best and creeping to keep up or get close to the pack. It's just how our programs that we have been doing working, like that's where I would find value in that type of comparative data, but you're saying it's not.
Well, what I can do, I may be able to, when we do the senior years presentation, I may be able to share some grade 9 data that would be, and it wouldn't be provincially, because again, we don't have all of the divisional data, but it would be data compared to the divisions that are part of the Action Research Program, and so we could compare it to that.
That would be awesome, I believe. But so is there no reporting that would compare the program outcomes to the divisions that are not participating in this program?
No, because they don't have the same assessments, and so that what it comes down to is everybody would need to be taking the same, common assessment for us to be able to say, how do we compare with other students, and we don't have that, and there wasn't any. I mean, we didn't have any provincial assessments this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would also help to know that the program that we are participating in is actually doing more than those divisions that are not participating. I know that we are improving, but why is it? Is it really because of that program? How do we know if we don't compare to other divisions that are not in the program? I mean, just saying.
Yep.
Comparatively. Thank you. I look forward to your next presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Anyone else with questions?
I just had, it's just Trustee Duma. What do we pay for Mrlc to be joined to that? What do we pay a fee or license for that to join in with that, our school division, or how do we pay for it?
Kathy?
Yep. Each of the rural school divisions pays $2,000 to be part of the Manitoba Rural Learning Consortium, and it's not just for this project, it's for all sorts of work in ELA and math and other areas. So that is Googleable. You can look at the Mrlc and the offerings that they have, but it is $2,000 for the year.
And that includes everything, or does it also include extras or anything else? Like, I guess they provide us with all of these documents that collect the data also. Is that all a package that we get?
Yeah, and again, depending on the level of involvement, sometimes we can pay for additional trainings and those kinds of things. But for the most part, a lot of the materials and the resources are there once you've started the project. They're there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other trustees? So Jody, I have a question. So we partnered with Mrlc and in 2016, and basically they helped us what to teach, when to teach it, how long to teach it, pacing. They took the curriculum outcomes and gave us that information, and we went ahead and did it. Throughout the year, we did some mini quizzes to find out, and those mini quizzes were standard across the division. And then at the end of the year, we did a divisional assessment, and it gave us those numbers about where all of our grade 6s are. Is that fair?
Correct, yep.
So my question is, why aren't we doing this kindergarten to grade 9? Why aren't we, there's power in what you presented, Jody. So you talked about that our grade 6 teachers, their teacher efficacy, so they're teaching, what's the right word I'm looking for? They're teaching, I won't use ability, but they improved as teachers because the data showed that for 4 years, our kids improved, even though there are different groups, but they improved as how things are going. So when Trustee Roland asked how we compare, we certainly can compare within our own division. If we were to do a divisional assessment about the math and the different strands that they would have on everyone, And we would be able to go ahead and certainly compare within Sunrise how kids are doing. Yes?
Yep.
Or no?
Yep, at those specific grades that, yeah, so right now, grade 6 and 9, we can do that.
So we're doing it at grade 6 and 9,
Yeah.
but we could do it for kindergarten to grade 9. We have the math teachers that could get together to go ahead and put together stuff, I guess, that MRLC did for us, or through Alan's leadership with yourself, go ahead and give certainly some kind of divisional assessment and have our students go ahead and do that, because it's been, what you've shown is some really good teaching. We're going to go ahead and quiz the kids. We're going to find out who did right or wrong on some of the things. It's going to inform their teachers. Were informed after the quizzes. What do I need to go back and teach again? What went really well? And that's been good teaching practice all along. But I guess I'm missing is, so we did it in grade 6 and grade 9. We're talking about involving the grade 7 and 8s. But my question is, why wouldn't we be doing this kindergarten right through to grade 9 with regard to certainly giving kids an assessment, finding out where they're doing? We would find out, helping us change our teaching practice or inform our teaching practices, but it would also give us some really good data every year about how students are doing. Comment?
Yeah, I don't think you'll find any disagreement here, and it is the plan. We would have had the grade 7s and 8s started this year, and we all know why that didn't happen. And so they're next. That bridges the gap between 7 and 9, and then we're going to continue up to grade 10, and then starting down and with grade 5 and keep moving that way. And so the real important thing for everyone to understand is that one of the reasons we have such good data is because the teachers were trained effectively. It wasn't just, here's the manual, you can do this. It isn't that simple. And I'm lucky because I can speak to this as the former principal of Gillis School, who was there at the start as one of the pilot schools where I had one of my grade 6 teachers attend. And so I saw the power in the PD and teachers who were really apprehensive to change, and you know this, Paul, to say to a teacher, no, you're not teaching the way you used to, even though you may have thought you were doing a good job, you're going to do it this way, and you're going to follow this pacing and this sequencing. It was uncomfortable, but it changed them, and you're right, they're all better teachers because of it, and our students are getting much more quality teaching and learning because of it. And so it's going to continue. I think if money wasn't an issue, if we didn't have to worry about pulling teachers out for PD, if that wasn't an issue and that didn't affect kids' education, then maybe we could do more. But I think it's really important that we continue on the path of doing these groups of teachers, and we do it right. And then we're gonna have these results. And I'm saying that, and I don't have any say on it. But that's where I think where we're going. And Kathy, you can correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, I think you're bang on. So our intent is to go from grade 5 to grade 10, but to do it right and to make sure that all of our teaching staff and all of our students are, again, invested in that process. It's more the process than the package or the product at the end of the day.
Okay, what I'm looking for too, though, Jody, is that we can get some pretty accurate data K to 9 if we were to go ahead and do some of the things that you're doing right now with the grade 6s. Anyways, that's for another time, but thanks, Jody, for that. You know what, I appreciate your spending some time with us and giving us the information. And so certainly on behalf of the Board of Trustees, thanks for doing the presentation tonight. Kathy, did you want to add anything? Nope.
Just thanks, Jody. I know that he's here talking on behalf of a great many teachers and schools and program leaders, and I think you've done a bang-up job, so thanks, Jody.
All right. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Yep, thank you, Jody.
Have a good night.
Okay, so we're going to move on to 5.1, our minutes from February the 2nd. Be it resolved that the board adopt February 2nd board meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by
Pachkowski.
seconded by
Roland.
second by trustee Roland. Thank you. Any questions to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote.
Sorry, there just a question about, there's an item, I think there's maybe an error in there. Item 5.1, and it has item 11.3 in there, probably just was left in there, it wasn't removed. If you look at 5.1 and you can see this statement from it that maybe should be pulled out.
11.3 Allen and Media today changed
Yeah.
to Alan Campbell, MSBA
Yeah.
president.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be, it looks like it's not supposed to be there.
Stacy, that's supposed to be out of there?
That was actually what was added to the January 19th minutes, was clarification that it was Allen in Media, because it said Allen in Media, but it was asked to change to Alan Campbell, MSBA president. So that was the change to the minutes for January 19th.
Okay, well.
So can you put in there then?
You're actually, when you do the corrections to minutes, you're not supposed to write in your corrections. You're just supposed to say that they're accepted with corrections and then they're just changed. You don't write in your minutes the corrections you make.
Okay, so let's move forward. Thanks, Diane. We have the minutes in front of us. We'll vote. Trustee Duma, we're waiting on you.
I think I froze up. Just a second. Just froze up on me.
Okay, so it passed 6-2. Thank you for doing that. 6.1 is superintendent's report. Ms. Dimko.
Thanks very much. I will be brief. I have 3 items that I wanted to share. First of all, thank you to all of our families who have gone online and or done the curbside pickup for their kindergarten registrations. I believe that as of today, we are at 295 kindergarten students registered, and we usually have somewhere in the area of 340 or 350. So still some out there, but please contact your school and or go online and get your kindergarten students registered for the fall. It really, really helps with our planning process. Secondly, we've had a lovely week of cold weather this past week. So I just wanted to give a shout out to transportation because they've done a great job of keeping our buses running and on the roads and are actually out there in the cold weather doing the hard work. A couple of clarifications around our cold weather policy. In my report, it talks about 3 regions, and it talks about us getting the temperature from different places in those 3 regions. We do use Environment Canada stations for our temperature readings. And there has been some question about how come we use the airport as our Environment Canada temperature. And that's because there is not an Environment Canada station in the immediate vicinity of Beausejour or Springfield. Some folks have asked questions around how come we don't use the Weather Network or the Weather Channel. And that's because they are different sources, sometimes in people's backyards, sometimes in different locations where they take some aggregate temperatures and are not as accurate as the Environment Canada ones. So I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware of that, some of the reasoning why we choose those locations for the temperatures to be as accurate and close as possible. And also that reminder, a couple of parents wanted to just double check that it was indeed okay not to send their child to school, and that is absolutely the case on any cold weather day. If you as a parent are feeling like it's not safe for your child to be out waiting for the bus or on the playground, you absolutely can keep your child at home on any of those cold weather days, even if the schools are open. Lastly, the third thing was there is a link in my report to a pandemic dashboard. Again, it will be on our website, but there is a dashboard now from Manitoba Education and Manitoba Health that lets folks track where there have been cases reported or where there might be outbreaks, and it shows up through some ArcGIS software that lets anyone check anywhere in the province to see where there have been cases reported and or outbreaks. That is my report, and unless there's questions, I will conclude it.
Thanks, Kathy. Any questions for Superintendent Timko? Okay, hearing none, go on to Secretary Treasurer. Scott.
Sorry, Paul, I was mute for a second. Thanks. Couple of things. I'll certainly echo Kathy's comments. With regard to our transportation staff, I mentioned in camera, and we'll mention again here. When it's really cold outside, not only the bus drivers who are getting up early and getting those buses warmed up, but the buses that won't go, our mechanics are out there in the minus 34, minus 33 degree temperatures with wind chills, trying to unfreeze brakes and boost batteries, and it's hard on them. So the last 10 days or so, I think we've been in a cold weather advisory since the 6th. So the last 10 days or so have been really tough on that transportation department, and as always, they do a fantastic job. So just a pat on the back for those folks. A couple other things. Our maintenance department flat out with a couple of major projects. The SCI wall and roof replacement will begin shortly. First step is to start preparing technical drawings before we go to tender, and we'll be working on that over the next several months. Phase 2, the Edward Schreier HVAC replacement set to go. We'll be going this summer. I'm still not sure it's been released publicly, but we're happy with the vendor selected by the province. It's a vendor we've worked with before and have had very good success. ICT, we'll talk in a second about some of the COVID costs, but is starting to move on enhancing some of the Wi-Fi in our school facilities, largely for the purpose of housing some of our remote learning teachers. Obviously, it's vitally important that they have access to solid and powerful Wi-Fi. And I have in my report that the payroll is diligently working on T4s. They were hoping to get them out Friday. Didn't get them out Friday, but I'm happy to report I just received an email that T4s are ready today. With all our part-time and casual and every staff who gets a T4, there's about 1,400 T4s. So that's a huge job for our payroll and finance department on an annual basis. So again, good job. And I did receive my T4 today, so I can get working on my taxes. That's what I'll highlight, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Carlton. Anything for Scott? Okay. We'll keep moving on. For trustees, you would have seen if 7.2 we added to our agenda, and it is a motion. Be it resolved that the board approve the 3 projects previously identified to the board in our Sunrise School Division submission to the Safe Schools Contingency Fund submitted in January 28, 2021. To get this motion on the floor, we need a mover and a seconder. So moved by
Trustee Rowland.
Trustee Rowland, seconded by
Pachkowski.
Trustee Pachkowski. Trustee Rowland, can you talk a little bit about the 3 projects? Can you talk a little bit about it, please?
Yes. So in January, we were notified of additional funding from the Safe Schools Contingency Fund that was available for our school division to submit an application to get some of those funds. January 19th meeting, Scott had let us know that Derek was putting together a submission. Deadline was the end of January. And I believe in our first meeting in February, Scott brought the report that Derek had submitted and it included 3 projects. One was, to refresh your memories, one was the water filling stations, 2 was security cameras, and 3 was video entry systems with intercoms and/or intercom systems. These were 3 projects that we put forward to be considered for this additional funding that has come forward from the province. And in Scott's report, I saw somewhere today that we're still waiting on the response from the province on those requests. However, I was wanting, since these are 3 projects that were identified that there was a need and there was an ability to act on these projects fairly swiftly, I would like to propose a motion that we go ahead with some or all of these projects regardless of the approval from the province, as we still have outstanding COVID money that could be utilized if we don't get approval for these projects. I just feel like these are things that we should go ahead, even if we don't qualify under the additional, or I guess what was called Safe Schools Contingency Fund, that we would still have room in our regular COVID funding to cover some of these projects, and I'd like to have them going ahead.
Thanks, Trustee Rowland. Go ahead. Did you still want to say something?
I was just going to say that maybe I would just mention the price, if you'd like me to add the price tags.
Please.
The water filling stations, and I have to say I can't recall exactly how many stations that included, would be 76,000. The security cameras, and again, I'm not exactly recalling the number of cameras and how many schools that was involved in that proposal, was 155,000. And the largest one was the video entry systems and intercom systems for schools as the doors are locked and people need to be let in. That price tag was 250,000. Now I believe our outstanding COVID balance is in around 600,000.
Thanks, Trustee Rowland.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go to you, Scott, first, and ask for some to clarify that these three things could be put under related to improvements due to COVID, and then I'll go around to the board.
Yeah, so Dan's mostly right. So the funding wasn't really Safe Schools funding. It was extra capital funding that the province has. But certainly, absolutely 2 out of the 3, certainly the water bottle filling stations and the security door opening would fit under COVID-related costs for sure. And we could use some of our additional funding for that. And I believe the security cameras was probably, I've got the document open here, was the lowest cost in relation to the 3 projects. So yeah, I mean, I think all 3 are valuable. I'm still hopeful and crossing my fingers that the funding, additional capital funding will come through, but certainly if the board would like to move forward, we can get Derek going on that.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I'm going to go round table with the board, and if they want to make any comment, certainly join in. Trustee Duma?
So we don't have the money at present, though. So
yes, we do have money that's available to us with money with regard to COVID costs.
No, but it's available or it's coming.
I'll let Scott answer that.
Well, it's available and coming, I guess. We have 1.6 million in leftover surplus from last year because we stopped non-essential spending. So that we have an additional 1.7 million in funding for COVID-related expenditures this year, of which we've received half. About 860,000 is in the bank, and the rest, I was waiting on a date from the province, but should be forthcoming at some point soon. So of the 3.3 million, we have 2.8 of that. No, sorry, 2.6 of that in the bank.
Does that answer your question, Trustee Duma?
Well, it's even though we may have that in the bank, we have some of that money put into other areas already, as we've discussed through budget. So I just wondered if Diane could explain more as to, is it your understanding that this is the money that is spent that we have sitting in the bank, or money that's coming from the province?
I'm referring to the unused portion of our COVID allowance from the province, which was Scott has presented, and in around just over $600,000. And this proposal was, I thought it was called, Scott, the contingency fund, or Safe Schools Contingency Fund, that had requested schools to submit proposals for projects that could be undertaken swiftly. And Derek did put forward a proposal. We have been waiting for a response for this additional money that would cover these 3 projects in total addition to anything else we've been going on. My purpose in putting forward this proposal today is just to have quick action on some of these projects. And if the funding from this contingency fund did not come to fruition, it may or may not, we haven't heard yet. It would be great if it did and covered these projects, or that would be wonderful. But if they didn't, we still have some money remaining in our COVID fund, $620,000 or so that would cover these expenses and still have some balance for other items that we have been looking at, and Derek and maintenance have been looking at, and IT have been looking at applying these COVID funds for. But I still feel we can move on at least some of these projects. Maybe not all 3, but I'd like for us to go on. For sure, the water filling station, I think Scott was the lowest one. It was 76,000.
You're right. Yeah. 76.
Yeah. So I just to supplement a question. So we made that motion at the last meeting about having the Secretary Treasurer move forward on those initiatives. Is this what you're talking about? You're just adding on to the motion that we made and you're making it more definitive. Is that what you're doing?
Not exactly. It's actually different, because those initiatives that we were speaking about, my understanding, and that previous motion that we did at the last meeting was in regards to the report that Kathy and Scott had compiled with the schools identifying their own needs, which, if you remember, there was a report from all the schools that identified the needs that principals had identified. Do you recall that report, Diane?
I'm just looking at the motion that we made.
So that motion, I believe, my understanding was that was in relation to the actual report that Kathy had presented when her and Scott had questioned every school on the requirements and needs that they had identified in their schools. And we had, I believe, given them approved the motion for them to go ahead on those self-identified needs within those schools. I'm referring to the 3 projects that Derek proposed under this funding that became available. That some of it was probably included as well in that report. I believe water stations were may have been mentioned in some of those schools, if I'm not wrong, Scott. I'm not sure. They're the same ones that Derek had put forward in that report. That's clear.
Scott, can you clarify this for us, please?
Yeah, certainly. So we spoke last time about 3 different tranches of funding. We have about 620,000 in COVID funding that we're not projecting to spend, that Diane mentioned. We certainly have some money set aside in the budget to the trustees' discretion for originally strategic planning, and then we have some reserve funds in ICT. All those funds total up to $1.3 million. So I had asked ICT and maintenance to put together a priority list, and we used feedback from school administrators to sort of populate that list. What do they need? And one of the interesting things is when I asked Derek, what's your priority? 2 of the things that he mentioned, the security door openers and the bottle filling stations, were also very high on the list of priorities for many administrators. So, certainly we were going to prioritize taking on those projects. In the meantime, we did apply for different funding for those projects. We have not heard yet, so we're still hopeful that funding may come. But again, we do have approximately 620,000 in COVID funding that we have not projected to spend. We certainly have needs for it, and I'm going to sit with Derek and prioritize, but these would be 2 things that we would prioritize, certainly.
Thank you. Diane, any other questions? Diane Duma?
No, that's okay, thanks.
Okay. Trustee Paczewski?
Thank you, Chairman. I have no further questions.
Trustee Harris?
Just that we need to make sure the motion does say where that initial submission was for, if it's Safe Schools Contingency Fund or something else. I went back to the Secretary Treasurer report for January 19th, which says that, and I'll quote, last week the province sent an email indicating they had some excess funds and were inviting proposals for divisional capital projects. It doesn't, in that report, doesn't actually say what this is called. If there is a name for it, then the motion should say what that is. If it needs a correction, then the motion needs to be corrected a bit. That's it.
Well, as I go around table, Trustee Harris, if the motion needs to be corrected, you're suggesting it, I'm going to come back to you with what should be the wording. Trustee Nicol?
Well, I'm going to vote against this for sure. The reason for that, I'm quite familiar with the grants. I wouldn't want to be assured that I don't want to spend money on all these three things. And then the government says, by the way, you can only spend it if you haven't already spent it. So I don't see why we're not waiting and finding out whether we have the approval or not. Because if we start, all the projects I've got from in all my lifetime when we had grants from the government definitely says any money spent before you get approval will not be reimbursed. So I don't know why we're trying to jump the gun here and try to spend money when we haven't even got it yet. And if we get it and if we spend the money, we're not going to get it then. So I don't know why we're in such a hurry. I think they said that they want the money spent by March 31st to that date. So they will be giving the approval fairly soon. I wouldn't want to spend any money unless we get the approval, because we intending to use that money to buy these things. And I don't want to spend money before we get it and then find out that we can't get the money because we have spent it already. And they say, well, if you already spent the money, you already got the money, why do you need the grant then? So that's the reason why I would be voting against it. And I would rather have Scott going out and talk to the province and find out if we spend the money on that, can we get the grant applied retroactively, which is not common in government.
Thanks, Trustee Nicol. Trustee Reid?
The projects certainly seem like good ones, but I do think I kind of would like to be certain that we can get them covered as well, rather than spending the money before we have it. So even though I agree with the projects, but I guess that's all I have.
Who am I missing? Trustee Inslee?
I concur with what Trustee Reid has just said, that great projects, but I want to make sure that we've got the money, because like Scott, are we going to get that 600,000? Is that what I'm just trying to get my head around it. Like, is this 600,000 guaranteed, and is that what we're going to use towards these projects?
You know, this is my first experience in the 3 years I've been here with something like this. I mean, all I can tell you is the province sent a letter indicating, the first paragraph says, this letter is informing school divisions of a potential one-time opportunity to expand the public schools capital support program. So, I mean, what this means to me is it appears the province had some additional money left over in their capital fund. They don't tell us how much. This is an open invitation to all school divisions. So, you know, certainly if they have $1 million and they want to be equitable to every division, we're probably not going to get 500,000, but you know, I'm not sure what division submitted or how much money they have. So it's certainly far from a guarantee. Having said that, with the time constraints, there was about a 10-day turnaround to submit proposals, and they needed projects that were shovel ready and could be completed by March 31st. So, you know, both of those things indicate to me that I'm actually surprised we haven't heard yet. I thought it would be a quick turnaround on approvals, and I'm not sure how many divisions would have been in a position to submit proposals that quickly for projects they can get done then.
Okay, thanks.
So basically, Scott, we have 6 weeks to have projects completed if they go to us. Correct. So if they come back to us and say water filling station, yes, you can do it, in security cameras, you can do it, but you have to have it done in 6 weeks. The other question is, I think Trustee Rowland is trying to say, guess what, if we want to do these things either way, whatever funding that we get, whether we get it from the province or whether we're going to spend it, you know, through the COVID funding. I think that's what she's trying to do, is trying to get moving on some of these things, basically security cameras, water filling stations, because we heard certainly from trustees. That's my take on what it is. So Trustee Rowland, I'm going to give you the last say to the motion.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would like to say that in regards to Dawn's comments, I have not had any experience in that regard, that any monies that we spent prior to approval of funding would go against our funding application. So that's news to me, and I'm very, apologize for my ignorance in that way. I haven't been a trustee nearly as long as you. So if that's a consideration and you feel that that's a legitimate consideration, well, I wouldn't want our grant to be reduced because of us taking a step earlier. And I would acknowledge that we should have actual approval the next little while. I'm okay with withdrawing the motion or tabling it for March when we should have heard from the province by then. And if we don't, then I would like to maybe address it at that time to just go ahead on these 3 projects. Is that a possibility?
So Trustee Rowland, you're asking about tabling the motion to March. Trustee Paczewski, are you okay about tabling it to March?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we'll go ahead and do. Thank you, Trustee Rowland.
Thank you very much.
So that's 7.2. Thanks, Scott, for that information. Please get to us that response from the province as quickly as possible. And also, Scott, I guess the idea is if we find out in March we've got about a 3-week window of trying to get projects completed, are we potentially able to go ahead and do that? That would be another challenging issue for us. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, 8.1 is COVID costs. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll touch on this quickly. I just want to keep the board updated at every board meeting. As you know, I do a monthly report to the province, the Safe Schools Funding Worksheet, that indicates where we're at in terms of additional expenditures during the year for COVID-related costs. So this is, I brought the January report to the February 2nd meeting. So this is just kind of an interim for the last 2-week period. As you can see, there's about 140,000 there. Again, most of that relating to additional staffing we brought in schools, itinerant subs and remote learning teachers. The one thing I'll point out on there, you'll see a rather large purchase order to Bell MTS for 44,000. It's about the 8th or 9th item down from the top. That is the beginning of updating some Wi-Fi hotspots in our facilities so that our remote learning teachers will have access to more stable and better internet in the facilities. So this is fairly consistent with what we've seen. So, not dramatically changing our projections to year end at all. But again, I'll bring the monthly report once February is complete.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for Scott on COVID costs? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. 8.2 is about our public budget input. So Scott, we have a draft budget coming up. Can you talk to the board and to the public a little bit about that night in that process, please?
Yeah, so 1 week from tonight, next Tuesday, the 23rd of February, the board will be presenting the draft budget. Generally speaking, we invite the public to listen to the presentation and certainly ask questions. Again, we're in a bit of a different environment. We will be updating information as we go along on the website, but certainly if you want to provide feedback, again, please let us know. We can either, well, we have several options for you. We can certainly set you up as a presenter in Teams and give you an opportunity to speak live in that meeting. I believe we will have a station set up at the Sunrise Education Center, which will allow, if you prefer, to attend in person, and then you can jump in front of the computer or camera as we set up and speak live. Certainly feel free to reach out to your trustees We will accept any and all input on our budget process up to and including that night. We will accept feedback and won't be looking at a final budget for passing by resolution of the board until March. So we are looking for public feedback on our draft budget and the budget process prior to passing our budget. The 23rd will sort of be the last chance for any member of the public to speak to us live. Again, you can get to us by email. You see the email on the screen, scarlton@sunrisesd.ca. You can use budget@sunrisesd.ca, or certainly reach out to each and any of your trustees whose contact information is on the website.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions to Scott from trustees? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you. 8.3 is the policy committee update, and I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Harris.
Thank you. Last Friday, policy committee had a meeting, and the minutes are shown on your ESP. Just to note that those are draft minutes. We will be approving them at our next meeting in March. That's it for that.
Any questions to anything that went on at the meeting from any trustees? Okay, hearing none. Trustee Harris, you do have a motion on here. Be it resolved that the board approve changes to policy 7.6 as presented by the policy committee. To get the motion on the floor, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder.
Harris.
Moved by Trustee Harris, seconded by
Pachkowski.
Pachkowski. Trustee Harris, can you talk very quickly about it?
So back in November, the board asked policy committee to look at a new policy regarding recordings of online board meetings. As part of that process, it expanded a little bit, and which we will be coming back with more on that in the future, as we had reported on last meeting. But as part of that process, one of the policy, number 7 we were looking at was public participation at board meetings. The document you have shown to you was a notice of motion from last meeting. We're looking for approval tonight. The items in green are additions to the policy, and the last couple of lines that are in purple is future work that's needed to look at and complete other areas of policy to make it complete.
So Trustee Harris, can you just quickly read those top three lines of just so the people in the public will also hear it about what the change is?
Certainly. So currently our policy 7.6 public participation at board meetings reads, the board invites public participation at public board meetings. The agenda for board meetings will include the opportunity for the public to ask questions. We are proposing to add, questions, not statements, from the public will be accepted on any topic. Every effort will be made to get an answer in a timely manner. Questions will be taken one at a time until the allotted question period time is reached. Our current policy then continues on. A delegation wishing to address the board at a meeting must advise the Secretary Treasurer. The Secretary Treasurer will advise the delegation of guidelines as outlined in board bylaws. And we are adding one line after that. See Section 7 of the Board of Trustees Operational Bylaw number 359-18 for more details. So we're just trying to clarify a bit of information in this policy.
Thanks, Trustee Harris. Any questions then or comments from trustees on the motion?
Just a question from Trustee Duma. When you're talking about that will be accepted on any topic, again, then you refer to operational bylaw, but we also know that in the regular portion, items such as personnel, etc., aren't actually for public. So is that just all kind of just, even though when it states on any topic, I'm just worried about the statement.
So at the moment, questions from the public are only being accepted on items that are currently on the agenda. For full transparency, we would like to allow the public to ask a question on any topic. It is still up to the chair to accept that question and either provide an answer that night or get an answer in a timely manner, which is what we've added to that. Great question.
So I'm just wondering, would it be better to say that they could ask questions that are not on the agenda? Because that's the real difference that we're making here. We were very tight on saying it had to be based on an agenda item, but here you can say based on items that are not specifically on tonight's agenda would be, to me, more in line of what you're actually saying.
Right. So we actually didn't find anywhere where it said that questions had to be specific to an item on the agenda. We're now adding a line saying that they can be on any topic. So
Okay.
we're not changing something that wasn't there. Or sorry, we're not changing something that was there. We're adding to clarify what should have been there in the first place.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Trustee Inslee, Robin, you just said for clarification that it would be up to the chair to approve the question. Should that not be in there then? Because it isn't at the moment. That's just something that you added. So that would make more sense so that board meetings don't go completely off track. But you just said that it was at the chair's discretion, I believe, or something along those lines. Right. So I don't have our policy memorized, unlike a couple of members on our policy committee. Perhaps one of them could speak to this, one of the ones who has it memorized, but somewhere else in policy it does address how questions are answered in the time period and so on. And that's where adding that clarification that see section 7 of our operational bylaw for more details, where it's written out elsewhere. So it doesn't need to be a part of this.
Karen, the chair does have the ability to accept a question or not accept a question already for us. Okay, I just that it's not in this particular document, so I just wanted to make sure that it was somewhere. Yep.
It is in the operational bylaw, so it clearly states that it can't be those items that Trustee Duma mentioned. Those are listed, and it also is the appropriateness of the question by the chair. And I want to say that it's section 5, the 3rd bullet.
I can't tell you which one it is, Karen, but it does have the ability for the chair to accept a question or not.
Okay, it's just that we're voting on this, and obviously Robin just added that bit in, and obviously because it's not in green, I just wanted to make sure that it was written somewhere.
Thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. So it passed 8-0. Thank you very much. Finance Committee update. So I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Rowland. You're the chair. The floor is yours.
Well, we have nothing to put forward, no register and no monitoring report at this time, and we'll see you guys next meeting with those items.
Okay, so we do not have a check register, I understand, so we'll move on. Professional development, the MSBA conference. We've talked a little bit about that with regard to getting information. So please get information. I think that we've all got information. Trustee Doom, I'm not sure if you were on in the beginning, but we did ask Stacy to register all trustees. If you don't want her to do that, please let her know. But we've asked her to register you. Financial monitoring report. We do not have one. Board correspondence. There's a number of things here. Stuff that we've added about funding of school program announcements from the Minister of Education, from the Student in Achievement and Inclusion, and from Manitoba Education from the funding branch. So there's all that information that's there. Nice to know information is our draft budget presentation is on February 23rd. We have a board meeting March the 2nd and March the 16th. And clarify, Scott, is that on March the 16th, we would be voting on a final budget, is that correct?
Correct. We are required to submit a final budget to the province by the 31st of March. So you know, it's up to the board. If we're ready, we can approve on the 2nd of March, or the last date will be the 16th.
Thank you. And 14.1 is questions from the public. Scott, do you have any questions that were emailed into you?
I hadn't seen anything, but I'll just check my email one more time, Paul. I have not.
Okay. My understanding is we do not have to move back into in-camera. That's right, Trustee Petruski?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So we do not have any items from in-camera. So I think that we're ready to adjourn.
Trustee Inslee, can I just
go ahead,
ask a question? I just messaged Stacey because I don't know whether it's the new ESB link. In section 11, I believe when I looked earlier, I don't know whether it was 11.2 or 11.3 or 11.4. There was some training today on Morneau Chappelle were offering some free mental health training, and I believe it was one of the documents in 11.23 or 4, and neither of my computers will open the documents. And I was just wondering, because it was offered to multiple school divisions on different days of this month, and I believe that rural school divisions was today, and from memory, you and Kathy had mentioned in a previous correspondence that you might be registering for. I just wondered if anybody in our school division had registered and gone for it.
Kathy, do you remember?
And I can't open the documents, and they opened earlier, and then I can't open them now.
Yeah, so the one that you're speaking of, we didn't have folks registered for. We are doing one called The Healthy Mind, I believe. Don't quote me, I'm just whipping through my email to try to find the actual name of it and stalling a little bit as I say the words.
I can't remember what it was called, but I was reading it earlier and I thought today was Sunrises. Like, it just said rural, so I just assumed that we fell into that bracket, but.
Yeah, we were accepted for a pilot and it's called The Healthy Mind. So we're doing that one through the month of March.
Oh, okay, right.
So Karen, if you want some more information from it, ask for Kathy, and Kathy will get some more information forward to you so that you can find it. I know it's a passion of yours, so certainly go ahead and get that information.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think that I'm missing anything. I'll stay quiet for a minute. I don't think that we're missing anything. All right. So if we're not, then we're good for adjournment. I need someone to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Harris, you were quick on that thumb. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm, and look after yourselves. Have a good one. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.